Marriage show. This is Barefoot Marriage show. Early in the morning at 9 a.m. I know we did say 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. We're here at 9 a.m. Please do bear with us because we do have this flexing timetable because our son goes to football, and depending on his football schedule, we can either do the morning or the evening. Both of them would be 9 p.m. or a.m. Today is 9 a.m. Alhamdulillah, welcome. I hope you're well. And despite the cold outside, you're enjoying your life at home.
Assalamualaikum everybody, my name is Henrietta and this is of course my husband Ajmal, and I am not 100% well today, but I will try my best to focus. Just dropped my son for football and we just decided to continue our conversation from last week. For those of you who have not seen the first part of this conversation, which is called Threat to Marriage, you can have a look at either my husband's timeline or my timeline on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. And today we are continuing talking about what are the threats that a lot of us can miss. Even the sassiest of people can miss some signs of what could be the threat to a relationship. So last week we talked about control freak.
Well, let's
we talked about control freaks and we did a little test. So those of you who haven't done it or you haven't seen it, go back to our video and do the little test that we had. Some interesting conversation came out of that.
Well, the threat number one was us understanding yourself and understanding your spouse. That was the threat number one. And threat number two is control freaks. Those are the two things we discussed. We didn't go any further. We want to, inshallah, go to the next ones. How did you feel about the last week's conversation? Did you feel we were a bit too threatening to you? Did you feel we were shaking your marriage a bit? We were calling you a control freak, or we're really unearthing things that we should not be unearthing? Did you feel happy otherwise? Did you think it was an important conversation? Give us a call. When I say call, send us a message. And of course, we'll read them out to you. And hope and pray that we have a good conversation with you again on threat numbers that we have. How many? 7, wasn't it? 7 threats. How many did I list here? Yeah, 7. So we've done 2 so far. Today we will be starting with threat number 3. All
Shall
yours.
I?
Yes,
Shall
bismillah.
So threat number 3 is called the untamed ego, the favorite word that we all like talking about, but very few of us are actually able to work with. So Ajmal's book, you can have a more detailed conversation about this with yourself and with your spouse. He starts off saying, in any partnership, the untamed ego can wreak havoc. And in a marriage, the partnership can be shattered if one's ego is left unchecked. Ego is often confused with self-respect. So this is the conversation where we want to start off. And this is a topic that we hear very, very often. You know, my husband has a big ego, my wife has a big ego, I don't know how to work with it, I don't know what to do with it. So let's look at what is ego and what is the difference between ego and self-respect.
Well, ego is that which caused Shaitan's downfall in the heavens. The first ever sin committed in paradise was because of ego, because of pride and arrogance. Shaitan thought he was better than Adam. When Allah told him to prostrate in front of Adam, he said, I'm better than Adam, so therefore I'm not going to prostrate. Now, ego is when you feel your self-importance and so self-worthy and you are so much better and more than anyone else. That's when your ego is at play. You're feeding your own nafs, as we say in the Quranic language. You're feeding your own nafs in the negative sense of the word, giving it more self-importance, giving it more pride and arrogance, claiming to be more self-aggrandized. In other words, you think you're so big and so huge, or not literally, but also position, money, your self-esteem, that kind of ego. And when it comes into a marital space, it is very destructive when one spouse looks at the other spouse and feels that they're better. When you look at your spouse and you think, oh, my wife, she's my servant, she has been made to clean up, cook and look after my affair and me and be my slave, that's when a big problem happens. I don't know how you're thinking, but that's what I wrote in that book.
Yeah, I was just looking at some of the signs, 11 signs of arrogance, which I don't think we will have the time to go through all of them, but we will mention some of them.
Just mention the headlines if you want.
So arrogant people hide behind a facade, and fake religious demeanor. Arrogant people are constant attention seekers, frequently interrupt conversations. They have an answer for everything. They always try to score points over others. They cannot tolerate competition, blame everyone else, avoid eye contact. They use condescending words and put downs, and they hold an arrogant swagger in their walk as much as they drop names out of context. So as you can see, it's a combination of behavior, how arrogant people behave, but also what kind of mindset they are walking
And the
around
language,
with.
and the language that they display.
And what comes out of their mouth, of course, is the expression of what's going on in their heart. So you can have a look at and read about the details. But I think the important part of arrogance and ego in a relationship is that when these are the things that I believe it's much easier to spot in other people. You know, that's why we started off last week talking about knowing ourselves is a very foundation of having a meaningful relationship. Because when we start doing these things to other people, we don't recognize we are doing them. We are so clouded in our mind. We don't have an understanding of what the impact is. And it's a very hard thing to spot within ourselves. So therefore, the idea that comes to my mind is, in a relationship, we are mirrors to each other. We need to remind each other if one of us forgets or one of us falls off the horse of not being able to handle and carry ourselves, because it's a very I believe it's a very human trait. However, it's one thing to do it occasionally or do it once, but if it becomes a characteristics, I think that's when it becomes a really difficult point of conversation in marriage.
Indeed. Very early in the morning, a lot of people are asleep, I think. So obviously, people are slowly waking up and joining us. If you have just joined us, woken up, we're talking about threats to your marriage. One of the threats to your marriage is ego. It's your self-importance. It's your self-worth. It's when you think you are more important than the other person. When your own personal need, greed, and your desires, whims, comes at the expense of somebody else's. That's arrogance or that's ego, whichever one you want to call it. I want to do a test with you all, just as a means of engaging you. If you're awake, give us a call or give us a hello if you don't mind on the screen, writing, saying Salaam Alaikum, or hello, good morning, good afternoon, whatever you feel like, wherever you are. Let's see if we have some people awake with us. Alhamdulillah, there are a few people, mashallah. We have Abu Zafar Muhammad who says Salaam Alaikum, Sheikh Ajmal, and all family members. Wa Alaikum Assalam. Miss Barefoot says Salaam Alaikum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us from arrogant behavior. Keep us humble. Ameen. That is very true. So here are some statements I'm going to read out, and I'm going to ask you to tell me on the screen what you think. Is it ego or is it self-respect? Okay? I'm going to do a quick test. So if you think it's ego or if you think it's self-respect, just put it out. See if you can participate with us, a few of you, inshallah. I have a can-do attitude to most things in life. Is that ego or is that self-respect? I have a can-do attitude to most things in life. Is that self-respect or is that ego? What do you think?
Do I need to answer now?
We can answer it together.
But then we will give it away.
That's
for people.
right. That's right. So we don't want to answer it yet. Sorry, my mind isn't as sharp as normal. I have a can-do attitude to most things in life. Is that arrogant? Is that ego? Is that self-respect? What do you think, people? I was number one. Number one, ego or self-respect? Come on, let's see if we have any responses from people. I have a can-do attitude to most things in life. Self-respect, says Misbah. Thank you, Misbah, at least for participating. We need a few more Misbahs around in the morning.
Yes.
Well done to you, Misbah, for taking your time out. Anybody else who would like to take part in our conversation? What do you think? I have a can-do attitude to most things in life. Is that arrogance? Is that ego? Is that self-respect? Misbah thinks it's self-respect. Does anyone think differently? I'm waiting for your response. Let's see if somebody else comes up. While you're thinking about this first one, second one, I have worked hard to achieve my success. I have worked hard to achieve my success. Abu Zafar says self-respect. Imam Hussein Shahin says self-respect. So the first one looks like is getting a lot of self-respect score. Second one is I have worked hard to achieve my success. Is that self-respect or is that ego? I have worked hard to achieve my success. Self-respect or ego? This is a difficult one. The second one is probably more difficult than the first one. I have worked hard to achieve my success for the final time. Is that ego or self-respect?
People are thinking.
I know they're thinking. I'm thinking too. Our brains are ticking away. What is it that makes you feel that you are the real reason why your success is so apparent? Or is it because your hard work has made you successful? And making a statement like this, I have worked hard to achieve my success, does that make you egotistical, or is it just a display of your self-respect?
No one is saying anything. I think people are really confused, or they are thinking,
Scared.
or they're gonna give us a long explanation of why they think either way. So let's see.
Inshallah.
No answer is coming through yet.
Not yet, no. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, I know I'm worth it. Is that ego or self-respect? I know I'm worth it. Is that ego or self-respect?
Ego.
Abu Zafar said this one, is that second one is egos. Haq says self-respect. Are you talking about number 2? I've worked hard to achieve my success. I think they're still talking about number 2. Is that ego or self-respect?
So if you don't mind putting the number of the question that you are responding to, so we can follow up to see where you are.
Second statement was, I have worked hard to achieve my success. Is that ego or self-respect? And the third one we're talking about, number 3, I know I'm worth it. I know I'm worth it. Have you come across that statement?
Yeah, great marketing tool.
Yes, it's often what the apprentice candidates often say.
Number 2.
Number 2, yes, I thought it was number 2.
So
Thank
I
you.
have worked hard to achieve my success. Number 2 is self-respect, according to Hux.
And Misbah, gone. Rafiq says answer number 2. It is self-respect. It is, if you include and acknowledge that success is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, otherwise it's ego. That is interesting. That is very interesting. Okay, number 3 then. Let's move on. I know I'm worth it. Ego or self-respect? I know I'm worth it. Ego or self-respect? I am itching to give the answers myself, but I'm not going to do that otherwise.
Well, it's an interesting one because people can, we can have a different interpretation. I have another interpretation for number 2.
Okay.
I totally agree with Ms. Bond on that point, but there is also another aspect of it, which is, what is the definition of success? Is it, and we don't know in Islamic tradition, we don't know what success is until we get to either Jannah or no.
No, we do. Because if we had led a decent, good life, we know. We have every hope that we're successful. But we also pray that Allah will make it successful.
But we still don't know until the actual judgment.
Yeah, but
so
if
we won't know where we end up. And if success in worldly term means, you have certain things that you have achieved, which is wonderful, but what is the ultimate definition of success? Is that I can have all the things in this world, but if I can lead a decent life, but I still don't know until the last minute whether I will be successful or not.
You see, Umar ibn Khattab said something very interesting. He said, if I thought that every human being has gone to hell and there's only one person who's gone to heaven, I believe that would be me. And if I hear that every human being has gone to heaven and one person has gone to hell, I'll be worried that could be me. I really like that statement.
I just love Omar overall. Like, he's
Yes,
a
everybody
fascinating character.
This statement is so beautiful because he has the self-belief. It's not ego, it's not self-respect, it's self-belief. I'm doing my best. I have every hope that Allah will send me to Jannah. That's a success story. Anyway, Abu Zafar says number 3 is self-respect, which is, I know I'm worth it. Is that really self-respect or is that ego?
Well, I tend to disagree with. I don't think it's self-respect. I think it's. I think it is a very strong element of ego statement, because first of all, the people that I can think of who are most self-reflecting and who carry self-worth within them, they are the people who never have to speak about this.
This is the point. If you have to keep on telling everybody,
Yes.
I'm worth it, I'm worth it, I'm worth it, then there's something gone wrong. That self-belief, of course, is important. Your self-belief that you're worth it, it is inherent in a believer. But if you have to keep on telling your wife or your husband, I'm worth it, I'm worth it, I'm worth it, then something is wrong. Something is wrong in the way your spouse is treating you, and something is wrong in the fact that you have to keep on repeating yourself and keep on reiterating to everybody, I'm worth it, I'm worth it. When you keep on repeating it like that, it can be a problematic statement because it could also land in the other person as an ego.
And also, when we think about worth and the expression of worth, I'm worth something, it gives the impression that something or somebody owes me something that I need to live up to. I have an expectation that is going to come to me, that someone is going to compliment me, or someone is going to give me money or complete or anything. So I think it's an interesting one, because if you dig deeper, you really start beginning to understand that the real self-worth does not come from talking about self-worth. It comes with an attitude, with a behavior of humility, understanding, and then respect and self-respect becomes part of the conversation.
And how does it damage a relationship? It threatens a relationship because you believe you're so worth it that the other person isn't. Or you don't treat your partner with the self-worth that they deserve because you're not bothered. You don't care. There is no compassion. There is no awareness. Remember what we talked about in the first one? If you don't know your partner or don't know yourself, it's a big threat. Ego can be a massive threat in a relationship, especially when you don't think your partner is worth it or worth the respect and dignity that you have yourself. Number 4, my success is due to my abilities. Is that ego or is that self-respect? My success is because of my abilities. If somebody says, my success is because of my abilities, are they being egotistical or are they having self-respect? Go on, people. Let's see who is over there. Put down number. Is number 4 I've just mentioned. My success is due to my abilities. Is number 4 self-respect or is that ego? People are obviously waking up. I understand.
And people are joining continuously, so I think they might have missed the beginning, and then they're
That's
not
okay.
quite
We're
sure.
talking about the difference between ego and self-respect, and I'm reading out some statements, and I'm asking you to take part with us by typing on the screen what you think. Is it self-respect or is it ego? My success is due to my abilities. What do you think, people? Go on. Let's hear from you. At least 1 or 2 answers before we move on. My success is due to my abilities.
And while you are thinking,
Number 4, it says ego.
yes, and while you are thinking, just notice how layered the interpretation is and how easy it is to miss whether it's an ego or self-respect.
A very fine line.
Very fine line, and that's exactly why we are doing it, because this can creep into a relationship very quickly, and if you don't realize it, then we go either way. That is probably not helpful.
Number 3 says Misbah, ego, if you have to boast about it. Yes, definition of success in this life for me is if you are humble, God conscious, and your tests and trials have brought you closer to Allah, that is success for me. Very beautifully put. And Misbah says number 4 is ego. I think we all agree, at least both of us agree here. Success is due to my ability is a massive egotistical statement. Success is never because of your abilities alone. Your abilities contribute, but it's the support that your wife gave, your husband gave, your parents gave, your siblings gave, your friends gave, the society gave, opportunities that you were given, and Allah's mercy and blessings that you had, the fact that you could wake up every morning, breathe, your health was okay. All of those contributed to your success. So if you think your success is because of your hard work, that's an egotistical statement, and that's a massive problem in the relationship. I made this marriage work. Really? We made it work. You did not do anything for this marriage. A very, very dangerous statement to make. Very dangerous statement to make, because you are immediately dismissing and belittling a person's entire contribution to this marriage, and you can't do that. That's a massive threat, a statement of not only threat but destruction of a relationship. I am the reason why this marriage is successful. A very dangerous statement to make. You have done nothing for this marriage. A very dangerous statement to make. And when you do that, both of those are coming from no self-respect or respect for the other, but ego. Number 5.
I know I look good. I didn't say that. I'm reading it from the book. I know
5.
I look good. Do you think it's a statement of ego or a statement of self-respect? I know I look good.
Yes, Abu Zafar says the Sheikh sounds very slightly low. Sheikh can't be sounding low because he's very loud normally. My microphone is right here. If anybody else is having any trouble with the microphone, let us know. I think it should be all right, inshallah. We can't obviously always guarantee the best microphone. Let me try. I'm going to just switch over for a second, and then I'm going to switch back to my normal. Number 5 says ego.
I know I look good. That's number 5 statement.
I know I look good. Is that an ego or a self-respecting statement?
Again, it's just, it's on the spectrum that, you know, you can look in. So here is a danger with this. When you look in the mirror and every single day, day after day, you say to yourself how terrible I look, how ugly I am, how fat I am, how different I am from when I was young, it takes you down the route of diminishing a healthy approach of who you are, to look at reality, embrace reality or changes, all those things. But if you don't look into the mirror and if you don't acknowledge that there is some beauty, there is some, you know, signs of wisdom, signs of aging as a growth process, then, and if you only look at beauty and the beautification and you keep working on, you know, how can I look better and better and better, then you are heading towards the egoistic route. So again, it's a very fine line to what is the tone of when you say, I know I look good, how many times you say it to yourself, how it becomes a characteristic as opposed to just a thing that you do.
When I look at the mirror, and if my mirror is telling me I look good, and I gloat about it, I boast about it, I take lots of Snapchats, as they call pictures, a selfie generation that we see ourselves living with, and then keep on sharing it with everybody, pouting left, pouting right, eyebrows raised, eyebrows lowered, look at my body, look at my face. That's a problem with ego. The shaitan at a complete play, shaitan at play. If a person needs constant verification and validation by their friends, their families, their loved ones, their spouse about their looks, and they keep on looking at the mirror and looking at their looks and believing that they're the best looking person on this earth, that's ego.
I saw a very funny sketch about women, and I think it was Trevor Noah who did a sketch about how women take selfies, and they prep and then do the positioning, a pouting, and they said, "Oh, I just took a random selfie." You know, he's hilarious when he's talking about this. But this whole culture about how we look, how we portray ourselves, it really is devoid of self-knowledge and looking into
and self-respect, to be honest.
Yeah, why do I need this? Why do I need to constantly follow some beauty ideals, or why do I need to be somebody else as opposed to accepting who I am?
Yeah. And this idea that you need to bring that to your relationship. So when I think I am better looking than my spouse, that's a problem. I am far better looking than my spouse. What you're doing is you're looking down at your spouse. That's an ego at play. And when you bring that, that's a threat. That's why it's very important discussion. Arrogance and ego can be a massive destruction for a relationship. From your looks to your behavior, from your attitudes to the way you display those to your spouse and your family.
I still think you're better looking than me.
Well, don't say that to the world. We are all good looking and we are all creations of Allah, alhamdulillah. And may Allah, keep us all wonderful looking. Allah has made all of us perfect in His own way that perfection should manifest. The way I am, that's the way Allah wanted perfection to manifest. The way you are, that's the way Allah wanted perfection to manifest. If I deny that you have been created in the way Allah wanted perfection to manifest, I'm denying Allah's creation. Very dangerous path, brothers and sisters. As believers, we cannot never ever say somebody is ugly. We can't say that. Because Allah's creation can't be ugly. It's a very difficult thing to do, right? We always judge people walking around.
By saying the same thing, signs and traits of an insecure person. Alhamdulillah, we are perfect in the eyes of Allah.
And in the way He has designed us. When you look at somebody and say that person is ugly, what you're saying is Allah's creation is ugly. La ilaha illallah. Allah forgive us for saying that. We can't say that. Please make sure you don't.
I'm not sure if we've got time for
let's
all
move
of
on.
this.
But it's an exercise on page 129 if you've bought the book. If you bought this book, which is 10 Steps to Getting Married and Staying Married, it's on page 129. You can open it up and do this as an exercise with your spouse or with yourself and just have a reflection. But we have also talked about 11 signs of arrogance. Hannah has covered them. Whatever they are, brothers and sisters, avoid arrogance. Otherwise, you are very likely to fall down the slippery slope of destructive relationship. It's a massive threat, arrogance and ego.
So one of the things I want to say before we stop about, we move on to the next thing, is that arrogance is something that we have to do daily checks on. It's something that after our prayers, we need to stop before we go to sleep, after we wake up. We have to find some time to think about where arrogance have crept into. It is the only way to keep check. Otherwise, we will just step over it and it grows. Arrogance is something that grows very quickly and we don't realize it. So we need to continuously. It's like when you keep an account, you look at your finances, you check how much is coming in, how much is going out. So you know you are not in debt, you are in balance. This is the same with emotions, with emotional security and emotional health. Actually is about balancing out. When I notice something is going out too much or coming in too much, I need to make sure that I counteract it. So we need to keep a check on our emotions.
Indeed. Thank you very much. So, number 4 is uncommunicated expectations. This is quite a difficult one. You know, people have so many things that they expect from their spouse. Below, I have listed a long list of expectations. People expect conflict, people expect disappointment, expect to be annoyed, expect disagreements, expect to find your spouse unattractive, expect your love. These are expectations that you should expect. Realities of relationship, which is what I'm mentioning. Let me repeat them again. So things that you should expect in a relationship and do something about it. In a relationship, expect conflict. No relationship can ever be non-conflicted. If you say, I have never had a conflict with my spouse, I think your relationship has got some issues. In a relationship, expect disappointment. Things your spouse would do, you'd be disappointed with. Of course you would be, but deal with them. Number 3, expect to be annoyed. There's a very nice saying, an American comedian, I think, Rita Ronda once said, I love being married. It is so great to find that one special person you want to annoy for the rest of your life. Right? Expect to be annoyed. Number 4, expect disagreements. You would disagree with your spouse every day, every morning, every night. Of course you would. It's human. It's not impossible. These expectations are very natural and very normal. Number 5, expect to find your spouse unattractive. Sometimes you will find your spouse unattractive. You won't always find them attractive. It's human. Expect your love to fluctuate. Our iman goes up and down. Our love can go up and down. Number 7, expect delays, both in gratification, both in love or delivery of services. You have to expect delays. Number 8, expect to do more. Yes, you should expect that you may do more than your partner. It's okay. Have that expectation. Expect to be alone. Sometimes your partner won't be with you. That's life. Expect it. Number 7, expect to go together, age together, grow together, and not worry about how am I looking now. I'm looking so old and wrinkly and frail. Well, that's life. Your partner has done the same. You all grow together. These are some reality checks of uncommunicated expectations in a relationship. People don't like to talk about it.
But these are, so in relation to how it ties in with threats, that depending on how we manage these things, they can either become a threat to the relationship or they become a building block of the relationship.
So, for example, if you don't expect conflict, it's a massive threat in a relationship, because the moment conflict breaks out, you don't know what to do. You want to run, you want to fly, you want to hide. But if you expect conflict, you'll be fine. So that doesn't become a threat. Let's pick up another one. Expecting disappointments. I will be disappointed. My wife will be disappointed, certainly. If she feels or felt before marriage, my husband is going to be perfect, I'll never be disappointed, never be let down by him. I'm afraid, I'm sorry, my dear wife, it's wrong. I will annoy you. I will disappoint you. I will be like that. I'm a human being.
I promise the same.
Of course you are. We are all the same. So having that kind of expectation well before marriage helps you to solidify the relationship rather than destroy it, right? That's the threat you talked about.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that these expectations, if you are well prepared, you don't feel that when they are not met in your relationship, you don't feel that your marriage is in tatters. Sometimes couples come to us, and when we really start talking to them, they are not really in trouble. They just haven't aired their concerns. They haven't spoken about these things. They haven't cleared. They haven't strengthened each other's understanding that this is not a threat to the relationship. This is an opportunity for you to get closer or find a different way of being together as married couples.
My son yesterday was a very wise boy. He was. We were having a disagreement over something, and he turned around and he said to me, "Everyone, please listen." We're listening to him. He said, "We all have different, obsessions or very different likes and dislikes. We have to learn to live with them." And I thought that was a very wise statement. Absolutely right. Anyway, Misbah is making some good points. Perfect reminder, daily checks in after Salah, as arrogance grows and creeps in, of course. Misbah again says, my philosophy in life is to agree to disagree and move on. No one is perfect. Also learn the language of love for your partner. And Misbah is saying regular healthy communication discussion is the key. Very true, Misbah. Thank you. Thank you for participating in this program. So here you are on the same chapter, pages 135 onwards. You will also find various exercises that I've listed, and you can always read them, do them together with your spouse. Misbah says, MashaAllah, your son made an excellent point, Brother Ajmal, thank you. Aisha Abdul Ghaffar, who has just joined us, an insecure spouse keeps talking about your flaws, what they think are flaws, and keep repeating them for 10 years of the marriage life. Don't we move on? Isn't that a threat? Yes, it is. Isn't your heart permanently hurt? Yes. Isn't the love you had for your spouse become irreversible? Well, I think the first part I understand very clearly. If your partner is only focusing on your flaws, something is wrong. Constantly reminding of your flaws, that doesn't work. How many times are you going to be knocked out? Each time your spouse criticizes you for your flaws, you're feeling a knockout. You're on the floor. You get up, another one, bang, you're on the floor. You get up again, you get another bang on your chin this time, and you are absolutely out of it. Eventually, you will quit. I don't want to be in this relationship, really sorry. If your partner, all they talk about is your flaws, it's time to stand up and say, hey, stop. What are you doing? Why are you talking about these flaws of mine? Do you not understand the impact of my flaws that you talk about? So-called flaws, of course. You're punching me constantly on my face. You're knocking me out. Emotionally, I'm talking about. Metaphorically, I'm talking about. Stop it. It's not good.
But equally, a really good communication, I think, in a relationship is that when these things keep coming up, have a conversation. Is there a truth in it? Is there something I need to change? It's not an attack. If you take it as an attack, we will always use defensive ways of defending ourselves. But if you take it as an opportunity, can I modify something? Is there something that I can use for moving forward, rather than either feeling completely knocked out or criticized all the time? There's an opportunity to build a communication channel to say, okay, if I keep hearing this thing over and over again, maybe I should sit and think about this.
So that was threat number 5, unresolved conflicts. Any unresolved conflicts that you have in your relationship, don't hide them under the carpet. Often when couples don't deal with their conflicts, it festers, it grows, and a molehill becomes a mountain. It becomes a massive storm in your mind, and you can't sleep, you can't rest because it hasn't been resolved. Unresolved conflict is probably one of the most threatening feature of a relationship. People keep on burying conflicts under the carpet, keep on bypassing them, keep on not talking about them. My mother-in-law spoke to me like my mother-in-law spoke to me like this, you didn't deal with it. Your father spoke to me like this, you didn't deal with it. Your brother did this, you didn't deal with it. You came late every day last week, we didn't talk about it. You didn't cook my dinner in the way I like it, we didn't talk about it. You left the toothpaste open every day, we didn't talk about it. Unresolved conflict, whether it is a toothbrush or a toothpaste, or it's your food or the way your families treat one another, it doesn't matter. Resolve your conflict. And also, sometimes expect that all conflicts may not be resolved. You will have to accept, forgive, let go, and move on.
And you have to be wise enough to know the difference, because if you leave an unresolved conflict long enough, and I encourage everyone, if you have these things, don't sit on it. Don't wait out that it's going to solve itself. None of these things are going to be miraculously disappearing or be fixed by us not doing anything. Just because we are not looking at something, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So seek help if you need. Go to someone you trust. Attend your unresolved conflicts, because they will just become bigger. You had a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago. 10 years ago, you told them to take up a counseling program. 10 years down the line, they are in the same issue, they are doing the same problem, their problems are actually bigger than they were before, and they haven't resolved.
Yeah, and because they don't want to resolve, or they just think it'll go by itself, it'll resolve by itself. They came back to me 10 years later saying, can you please help? And that's what happens with unresolved conflict. If they're major, they will come back. Even the minor ones. If they've been festering, they will come back to bite you, brothers and sisters. So don't sit on it. Unresolved conflict must be resolved. That was number 5. Number 6 is lack of empathy.
Shall I read?
Yeah, there are some signs that I've read out. I've written down about lack of empathy in your relationship.
So below is a list of signs of a lack of empathy. Your relationship can be seriously threatened when you are completely empathetic and your spouse is totally lacking in empathy.
And people don't understand empathy sometimes. So we probably need to define it first, no?
Yeah, so
Let me define it for you. Brothers and sisters, if you're walking down the street, imagine you see somebody who has fallen down. You see somebody fallen down. First reaction is sympathy. Ah, poor soul, has fallen down. Why? Because you know falling down is not nice. It's a human being, must have hurt themselves. They've fallen down. Your instinct is to go and help them. That's called sympathy. Empathy is when the person has fallen down and they have hit their head, and you in the past have hit your head too, and you know what it means and how dangerous it is. You run to their aid because you understand their pain and you feel their pain. So empathy is one step more than sympathy when you feel their pain. And the last and the most important one is compassion. Compassion is not only do you understand their pain and feel their pain, but you want to experience and be with them while they're going through that pain. You want to hold their hand. You want to cover them with your jacket. You want to lay something comfortable underneath them. You want to sit there holding their hands until ambulance turns up. You want to be with them while they're at the hospital. That's called compassion. To be a companion of the person who is experiencing whatever they're experiencing. We're talking about lack of empathy. In other words, not just a reaction to my feelings, but a recognition as well as an understanding from experience of what I'm going through. Go ahead.
Great. Okay, so second, you are always available for your partner to express his or her feelings, but the same is not reciprocated. So it's a one-way street when you can always express yourself, but your partner doesn't have the opportunity to do the same. You listen to your partner's feelings with compassion and love, but they are totally oblivious of yours. Again, it's just there is no flow of communication between expressing feelings of love. You feel the pain of your partner, you suffer when he or she is suffering, but your partner is not remotely concerned. Again, it's a complete disconnect. I want to say something here because it's important to notice that there are some conditions where people can't show empathy. Just by there is a condition. For example, Asperger and a lot of people don't get diagnosed until much later stage. So they can go through years of marriage complaining that my husband or my wife is not able to show emotions, but actually never been really diagnosed that it could be a part of a condition that they can't show empathy because a part of the brain, I believe it's the left brain. So if there is a damage if the left brain, then you are not able. What I mean by damage is there is a somehow a miscommunication in the brain signals. You can't physically. You don't know the understanding of empathy, so you can't show.
So we need to be aware of that.
And we have to be aware of this because sometimes we have a spouse who doesn't really know how to do this, but we really need to get to the bottom of it. Is it something that is just a emotional behavior pattern that has been learned? Or is there a physical thing that we need to understand that it could be a condition that the person
and
is
Asperger's or any other symptoms or syndromes that we so call won't just appear randomly. You would have noticed this and you would have understood them by other behavior, not just lack of empathy, but others. Just because somebody lacks empathy doesn't mean they've got Asperger's. I just don't want you to make that conclusion.
Yes.
And make that a professional diagnosis rather than you become the doctor. It's important to make that distinction. Sorry, carry
on. When you are in pain, your partner dismisses this as trivial, overblown, or irritating. Your partner does not recognize your facial expressions or moods, but expects you to know theirs. Your partner does not show any interest in the pain behind your bad mood. Your partner sees your problems, worries, and pains as less important than theirs. Your partner uses the opportunity to vent and compare their own problems when you are trying to express yours. And your partner constantly undermines your emotions but demands their emotions to be recognized and managed.
Okay, a lot of things. We can't obviously be We can't cover all of them, but it is ultimately an attitude issue. If you are so selfish, self-absorbed, and in some ways egotistical, your empathy would be diminishing very fast. In other words, you're not interested in somebody else's pain, you're not interested in somebody else's feelings, you're not interested in somebody else's well-being, you're only interested in yourself. We call such a person selfish person. Lacking empathy is a trait of a person who's very selfish. And we want you to obviously overcome that. These things that we have said isn't to only talk about the negativity, but also to help you, to empower you to become better. So, how do you develop more empathy? How do you do things that will make you more empathetic? There are a number of things I have mentioned here about empathy. And I said leading to empathetic relationship is key to a successful and longer and happier relationship. Here are some key benefits of empathy worth noting. Empathy helps you resolve conflict and misunderstanding as you are more willing to see your partner's perspective and understand their feelings. Empathy gives you insight into the deepest recess of your partner's emotional world, allowing you a fuller experience of the person to whom you are married. Empathy shows your partner that you love them enough to be fully engaged and present, bringing you closer to one another. Empathy in the relationship causes you to have more compassion for each other and be less judgmental with your spouse and other people in your life. Empathy allows you to distance yourself from your own petty grievances, frustrations, and demands when you are focused on your partner and their needs and feelings. Empathy deepens your collective resilience in a marriage. You're able to connect and share with each other moments of deep emotions. Empathy can enable you to keep a check on your spiritual emotions. By understanding and sharing your emotions, you are also helping each other to develop deeper reliance on Allah. Very important to develop empathy. If you are in a relationship with no empathy, talk to us. We're very happy to help you, especially because we offer counseling, we offer coaching, and we offer mentoring. We offer mediation in your life and relationship. If you're in need of help and support like that, get in touch with us. Our email address is info@barefootinstitute.com. info@barefootinstitute.com. You can go to our website barefootinstitute.com and of course contact us via that too. It's not that difficult to be contacted. We have all sorts of ways, alhamdulillah. You can also share this post with other people so that they may be able to understand and learn this video itself. If you have learned, if you've benefited, and I'm pretty certain a lot of you do, because that's the feedback we get, please do. Let's talk about the last one, which is absence of intimacy. I've read so number 7.
So first, let's just look at the basic idea of intimacy. When we talk about intimacy, what we mean by intimacy is both physical and emotional. There's a really important aspect of intimacy that a lot of people miss. Intimacy isn't just being physical with each other. It isn't about the physical act of togetherness. It's actually emotional intimacy, which is the opening gate to physical intimacy, I believe. So there has to be a level of emotional intimacy present, because when there isn't, the lack of physical intimacy is going to manifest very quickly. So here we have a list of things that absence of intimacy in a marriage causes, what it can cause when there is no intimacy. So it leads to resentment. When you get married, you consent to share your emotional and physical self with your partner. When intimacy disappears, and here we are talking about emotional, there's no effort to resolve or revive this, so resentment starts setting in, and that can be a lingering problem that is corroding your marriage from within. Second is distance. Marriage brings two people together to build a rich, strong, and codependent life based on friendship, vulnerability, shared joy, and common ground. When intimacy disappears, distance sets in. Again, we are talking about emotional distance. A lot of people come to us and say, I just feel very distant from my partner. I don't know how to get closer. I don't understand this closeness. What's missing? Something is not quite right. So that's the distance of the relationship. Or when you become like roommates, you live with your spouse with no intimacy, physical and emotional, and there's a risk that your marriage would turn into a roommate-flatmate relationship. You manage really well, you know each other's timetable, you know who is using the bathroom at what time, but you can do that with a flatmate. It's not it's not an ideal state of being. What's the point of being in a relationship if that's how you function? Everyone is busy, everyone is running their life, but then when it comes to intimacy, if that's missing, emotional and physical is going to creep in. Number 4, infidelity, which is where marriage is an exclusive space for physical intimacy between the married couple at the exclusion of all others. When intimacy disappears, erroneously, some may find rationale for marital affairs outside of marriage. So this may seem an attractive and short-term fix, but this will certainly destroy the marriage. So you can see that we are going through step by step, getting more and more into the physical threats of your relationship. Number 5 is pornography. And again, it's a thing that we as a community cannot ignore. This is a very deep-rooted problem in our community. Amongst the many other modern day challenges, especially in an age of instant access to anything that we can have access to and we can put on our hands to, the availability of pornography has proliferated. So it is something that has become a daily conversation in a lot of marriages. And finally, you want to...
Yes, number 6, which is to do with absence of sex leads to physical relationship, leads to both spouses doing other things to self-gratify themselves. It is, of course, it happens, and people come to us and they say, this is the problem, what do we do? Couples resort to other means of self-gratification instead of attending to one another's needs. This happens when both the spouses forget that it's not just the emotional intimacy that should be the only focus of a relationship, but the physical elements of touch, being playful, but being together more physically. If it's missing, it can lead to the persons in that relationship, though not becoming not going into infidelity, but self-gratification becomes a norm, and it becomes a vicious cycle. When self-gratification is norm, then a sexual relationship becomes a problem, because self-gratification leads to a particular type of pleasure that sexual relationship doesn't fulfill, and sexual fulfillment is a very different type of pleasure that self-gratification doesn't, and you can't break away from the dependency on one, and therefore the other is affected. So these are some of the impacts of lack of intimacy that we have talked about, and we want you to be very focused on this. Ms. Ba said, yes, sister, absolutely, I agree, emotional intimacy comes first for me. You see, this is where I think a bit of a reality check needs to be put in. I don't want to speak on behalf of man or woman. I want both sides to understand the both. Women do emphasize more on emotional intimacy. They do. But men emphasize more on physical intimacy. If women deny the man his physical intimacy priority, then that man will be in a relationship where he would be looking for alternative. And if a man denies a woman's need for emotional intimacy, she will also have the same problem. Can you see both are important? If you say, okay, I need emotional intimacy, and badger on about it 24 hours a day and give nothing to do with physical intimacy, you've already lost the other partner. And if you keep on badgering your partner about your physical need without giving any emotional importance to your partner's needs, you've already lost your partner. So it's not one or the other. Both are important. The risk is men ignore emotional intimacy and women ignore physical intimacy. I know I'm generalizing, but I'm generalizing based on the experiences that I've had for the last 20 years in couple counseling. Men often talk about, lack of, my wife is not interested in any physical sexual relationship or even playfulness. She's not interested. And she says, well, how can I be interested when there is no emotional attachment with him? Well, invest in both. In Islam, please remember this, in Islam, we're not allowed to have sex outside marriage. We're not. It's haram, right? So the only place where we can have sexual relationship is marriage. So Allah gives us license to be physically involved with one another, sexually with one another. That's what we say according to Islam. If you deny that part, what's the point of being married? Because everything else I can do with somebody else outside. I can be emotionally involved in friendship. I can be a companion for somebody. I can be a partner in a business. I can be involved with my parents, with my brothers and sisters and friends. But the relationship that is the deepest end of relationship, according to Islamic perspective, is your sexual relationship. And if you are ignoring that element, then you're ignoring a major chunk of a healthy relationship. So our focus isn't one or the other. Our focus is both. But remember, as Muslims, we're not licensed to have sex outside marriage. Only place where we can have it is in marriage. And if you deny that very thing that we can have in marriage, you've actually taken away one of the biggest feature of that license that Allah has given you. Not at the expense of your emotional investment, spiritual investment, and any other investment that you need to make. Please keep that in mind. Right?
Yeah.
We have.
I think we probably have to speak.
Ms. Ba says, yes, brother Ajmal, you are 100%. Both emotional and physical are important for both partners. You have to invest in both areas and work on it via open communication and learning. Thank you very much, Ms. Ba, for being with us all the way.
She's been very active today.
Alhamdulillah. And we really appreciate that, Ms. Ba, because that's how we keep our program alive. People are engaging. This morning, I've learned that a lot of people are asleep. Maybe Sunday morning syndrome. They didn't wake up on time. Or they just woke up and groggily looking at our program. Whatever you're doing, it's fine. Brothers and sisters, do share our program with others so that they can benefit from it. So please, everybody, after you've watched the program, or even now, share it with people. Send a link to somebody else saying, hey, it's very simple, isn't it? Nowadays, click the button called share. The more you share, the more people will watch, inshallah. Couple of announcements. Marriage book, please buy. Emotional intelligence book, Heart Smart, please buy. Both of them are available on our website. We've talked about it.
Indeed.
And if they need help and support?
You can visit our website, www.barefootinstitute.com. You can send us an email, info@barefootinstitute.com, or you can get in touch with us on Facebook. A lot of people do. You can message myself or my husband, and we will attend as quick as we can. We have been quite busy recently, so bear with us, but within 3 days we will get back to you, either by email or on Facebook, wherever you reach out to us.
And if you are looking to get married, you can book me for your nikah if you want, if I'm available, for sure. I'm quite happy to support you. Some people have come to me for pre-marriage program. I do that too, one-to-one, or one-to-couple rather. So both of you who are about to get married, I would always recommend that you book in a couple of sessions just to talk about issues, iron them out before you sign on the dotted line. A lot of people don't iron them out and they get married and they really get into a massive tangle. I recommend that you don't get into a massive tangle without ironing out your differences, if there are differences, or simply exploring marriage together, or buying the book and reading them together. Exploring something before you marry is such an investment that you will never regret. Very important, right? And we will be, inshallah, doing some program this year, both premarital courses, book launches, and other programs. Finally, we are still looking for a good person who can take on this challenge of being our program manager. We're talking about it here, inshallah. We'll advertise it very soon. Just doing it because maybe there is somebody out there who is good, who is looking for something to do, something challenging, or somebody who's very good, who is very is willing to take up the challenge. Please get in touch with us, info@barefootinstitute.com. We want to get you involved in our work, and we would like to be involved in many things that are happening. So do stay in touch, info@barefootinstitute.com. Any other announcements from you, Hannah?
I am beginning to teach again emotional intelligence for couples. So I have run this program. I ran it last year. So if you're a couple and you would like to work on your emotional intelligence skills, just reach out to me, because that's something I really love teaching and I really enjoy doing it. So inshallah, otherwise, if there's nothing else, we will see you next week.
Ms. Buzz point, mashallah, you're both providing an amazing service to the community. Jazakallah khair so much to you both for your time and sharing your wisdom, experience, and highly valuable knowledge. I will be sharing with others inshallah. Keep up good work. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you with good in both worlds. I mean, Ms. Buzz says, we'll be following Barefoot Institute. Thank you very much. And again, from both myself and my wife, we would like to say, have a fantastic Sunday, whatever you're doing. And the remaining week, we'll see you next Sunday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.